It's a very universal language. You want to work on the other side of the world, you probably can. And I think that's the best thing. We're at Wellcome HQ, which is the home of Wellcome Collection on Euston Road, sunny Euston Road, where I'm a software engineer for Wellcome Collection.
Yo, what's good, guys? You're here with Amos Mukombero, and you're watching Local Insiders Digital Jobs. We spoke with digital industry professionals in Camden, Hackney, Islington and Tower Hamlets to understand the different pathways to finding digital jobs. Amos Mukombero in conversation with Georgia Whitney. Presented by Lyft and Good Growth Hub. Could you tell me about your job and the process you took to get into your current role? Or were you doing anything tech related or...?
No, not really. I was known as like the tech person on my team, but no, I was duty manager for the museum. So very, very non-tech, very hands-on. So it's a big change.
Oh wow, that sounds so interesting in regards to the career shift there. Could you tell me about how you felt going through that change?
Yeah, I mean, like starting with the negative, you do get a lot of imposter syndrome. You really feel like you can't do it. You haven't gone through the traditional route. I haven't done a computer science degree. I come from a literature background. It was a bit of a fantasy. You start to learn it, like your confidence in that is actually just part of the role. You start to kind of find your own curve with it, find your own voice with it. I was using a lot of skills that I had to use in my previous career. Communication, knowing how to facilitate and problem solving, things like that is really at the core of what you do. And then the very tech language side comes along.
You're a people's person and then tech is your bonus as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think it certainly makes it easier. I think there's this real preconception that tech is full of people who are working alone on the computer, but it's really, and founders and coders taught me that, it's really a shared experience. It's a really team experience. You know, you're learning from each other all the time. So I worked in museums for about 10 years now. Saw a job advertised, well, it was an apprenticeship advertised for software engineering level 4. And I jumped at the chance. I've always wanted to get into software engineering. I'd been self-learning for about 2-3 years. And very slowly, you know, it's been a busy few years for museums. So I jumped at this chance, was lucky enough to be really successful in my application and got the job.
Congratulations on that pivot. Sounds amazing, you know,
Yeah.
that you've been able to do that. Could you describe what your job actually is, in layman terms?
Essentially, it's looking after digital things. You're maintaining databases. You're, making sure the UI looks good, building components. You're making sure that visitors get the information that they need online and in a timely manner. So it's looking after the website, but also kind of creating and building on experiences.
Sounds really insightful in regards to the variety in the work that you do. In regards to kind of your time at Wellcome Collection, what has been a recent project or your favourite project that you've worked on so far?
I recently implemented the UI, so the user interface, so how the website looks, for a new feature with our stories. So we have a host of stories, comics, picture stories, long form stories, poems on the website written by collaborators, people external to Wellcome, some people internal from Wellcome. And I built the UI that allows visitors to the website to filter through those stories depending on the format. So say I only want to look at comics today, you can select and just look at the comic. Maybe you just want the photo stories, you can just look at the photos.
Thank you so much for taking us on this journey. Challenges. Have you faced any challenges in your career? And if so, how have you overcome those challenges?
I think the biggest one is confidence, right? So I had a lot of imposter syndrome, and I still say imposter syndrome sits there in the background a little bit, because you have to, not only are you taking on all this brand new material, you're then trying to convince yourself, among other people, that you're also able to handle all the new material and all the new technologies and the languages. I think sometimes you just have to take a moment to recognize where you've got to, recognize what you're able to do. There's no hard and fast limit in how long it might take you to do something.
I'm really curious to know, what advice would you give your younger self?
I wouldn't worry too much about where your degree is going to get you. I think what I've learned the most over the years is that you can dive into anything within reason, what you want to do, without having to drastically change how you started. I had a lot of regrets. I loved my literature degree, but I was like, what am I going to do with it? I loved museums. What am I going to do? You can't take things back. You can just keep driving forward and, not be afraid to try something new.
Are there any hobbies that have influenced you into getting into your career, or are there any hobbies that actually benefit you in your career?
Yeah, I love computers. That always helps, right? I think coming from a literature background, reading was always it keeps up that kind of analytical side of your brain. Also, I love video games, and I'm in the kind of career where if you want to go down that path, you can if you want to. I think I prefer just playing them at the moment, and I think websites is fine with me.
What would you say is the 3 essential skills for a role like yours?
Aside from like technical knowledge and expertise, which does also evolve as you're on the role, someone who's willing and able to learn constantly. You never stop and you're like, okay, I can do it now. You're constantly learning new things, new technologies. Enjoying learning is probably the biggest one. Communication, you want to be able to talk about what you're doing. You need to tell other people what you're doing. And more importantly, it's an industry where it's okay to get stuck. So you want to ask people, okay, what am I doing wrong? How have you done this? How can you do this differently? The fun part is problem solving, playing with analytical brain work. You're solving puzzles, you're building. So having that, and it doesn't matter where you've done that is, I think that's the kind of underline of everything that you do.
What does gender and equality in your field, what does that look like?
It's something that initially I was a little bit, it was something that plays on your mind. There's like statistically not that many women or non-binary folk in coding or tech generally, and it felt like it was going to be a bit of an uphill battle, not only to prove yourself but then feel like you're in the company of other people. But the bootcamp were very good at kind of setting out our expectations of we're all here for the same purpose, we're all here for the same reasons, how to show respect to each other. I was really lucky to have 2 very solid female coders mentoring me through my journey, which I think also gave me that boost. They've both come from very similar non-traditional STEM backgrounds as well. So you not only have that emotional confidence, but then the technical kind of persuasion and guidance as well.
What does this location mean to you?
I mean, my entire career has been here in Camden. We're very much at the border between where North meets Central, really. There's one postcode at the front of the building, there's another postcode at the back of the building. There's a lot of peers around here, museum-wise, tech-wise. This is a place that's really firmly rooted in its community. Finsbury Park knows Space 4 very well, which is where we did the bootcamp. It feels like everywhere I've been, both Camden and Islington, is very rooted as like, we're part of this community.
Where can people go to find opportunities? Are there a lot of local opportunities accessible?
I would definitely say scope out who's in your community. My initial instinct whenever I'm looking is just to know where places are and then look at them directly. What are they offering? There's a great government website for apprentices where you can search either a specific apprenticeship, so mine's a level 4 software developer. You can search that and you can see where places are doing it. Ultimately, see who your neighbours are, because they're always pretty keen to make better connections with their neighbours, especially if you're local and especially if you've grown up here.
If someone asked you about your career and maybe they wanted to get into your career, what advice would you give them or what would you tell them?
If you want to, just give it a go. You come away from learning this kind of material with so many different skills that if you get into it after a couple of years, you're like, oh, you know what, actually, I don't want to do this. I want to be a bit more hands-on with something. You've got this amazing skill set sitting there and you have nothing to lose. It's creative, it's rewarding. They're all the kind of buzzwords that everyone says about their career, but you can create so much, you can do your work. Then you can come home and do something for yourself as well. You can take it wherever you want. You can work wherever you want. It's a very universal language. You want to work on the other side of the world, you probably can. And I think that's the best thing you can do. I've gone down the museum route. You could go down, if you wanted to do finance, you could do finance. If you wanted to do retail, you could do something super creative, fashion, art house. Every one of these places need a website. They need technological expertise. So yeah, just keep learning, getting your portfolio there, ask lots of questions to people in real life, ask people questions online. Don't be afraid to get things wrong. A whole part of it is getting things wrong, fixing things. Bugs happen. That's what we're there to fix, and you'll be dandy.
In the age that we're in, technology moves at such an incredible pace. How are you upskilling, maintaining that skill level?
You're learning all the time. So for me, I spend about a little bit of time each week and I read a couple of different dev news sites, really small snippets of this technology's in vogue again, or this is having a bit of a revival, or there's this brand new framework, things like that. I'm not going to use them all the time. I might not learn any of them actually forever, but it's just about kind of keeping in the know. Oh, okay, that's floating up. So someone might bring it up in conversation and you think, oh yeah, I read a little bit about that. I think a little bit every day is really useful. It's like learning a language. Even if you're fluent in a second language, you want to keep it kind of trained and maintained.
Thank you so much for taking us through that journey. I hope you guys have gained some insights into tech careers, and hopefully you've learned something new about an industry maybe that you hadn't explored before. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, and yeah, we'll see you on the next walk. This video has been presented by Lift and Good Growth Hub, supported by Mayor of London, in partnership with Camden, Hackney, Islington and Tower Hamlets Borough Councils. Creative direction and visuals by Walk with Amos and Usman Dare. Lift supports people from underrepresented backgrounds living in Camden, Hackney, Islington and Tower Hamlets to find jobs and training in the tech, creative and science sectors. For more information, visit www.liftfutures.london.